So can you outsource instructional design? There are 2 points I want to discuss here when I talk about this issue. The first thing is, in some ways, yeah, absolutely you can outsource instructional design. You know, a lot of companies hire consultants for part-time work all the time. When you only need someone for 3 months, 6 months, 12-month project, you don't need them on permanently. You can absolutely bring someone on as an instructional designer to develop your curriculum. That person may also be a subject matter expert, or you may have the subject matter expert. They may just be the instructional designer, but you can absolutely bring them onto the project. That person can work virtually or be in your office. It really doesn't matter. So in that regard, as a consultant, you can absolutely outsource instructional design to like a boutique firm or just a person. Now, when we talk about outsourcing out of country, out of culture, it becomes a lot more challenging. You know, one of the things I like to talk about, you know, in my experience is that, you know, when I've worked on projects where sometimes we've had to develop content for multiple countries. And this can be very problematic as an instructional designer. So when I talk about outsourcing, I'm always referring to that consulting. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, we can definitely bring someone on. But as soon as we start talking about other cultures, it gets a little more iffy. So let me give you some examples. So let's say I'm developing content, but I have to develop it for another country across the ocean, you know, not one that's close to us that has very similar culture or language. Some of the problems that I run into are that my SMEs that I'm working with and myself as an instructional designer, when I'm developing like a, you know, some kind of scenario to show an example of something, of how something works, the dialogue we're using, the clothes we're wearing, the colors that I'm using in that video or things I'm describing aren't going to apply to that other culture. And that becomes a real problem because sometimes it doesn't make sense. And one of the biggest problems I've always run into is you can't just have a translator change the language because things don't always even translate language-wise, let alone the message I'm trying to convey. So it becomes a big problem. So what I've done in projects where I'm having to work with other cultures is we have to bring on another SME or another subject or another instructional designer from that company, you know, from that culture where you know, the training is going to be delivered. So if I'm trying to deliver training in 10 different countries, it's going to involve a big team. I can't just do it myself. You know, this is one of the issues I have to explain to clients a lot of times. We can't just do this. In some regards, when I talk about this to students, I say, you know, your job is pretty safe because someone's not going to be able to outsource instructional design to another country to take it away from you because culturally we just can't do that. Unless we had very similar language and culture, it's not really possible to do. So those are just some of the things I like to bring up when I talk about outsourcing and instructional design. And it's why it applies so much to us and is so important. Absolutely, you can take on a consultant, you know, but when you're trying to develop training for another culture, it's a whole different issue. It's very, very difficult to try to outsource that. Thank you.